if you have not subscribed yet, or if you are new, please hit that subscribe button and your post notification bell in order to get all your latest details about when I'm posting, honey. Okay. Welcome back to another Bible time. Oh, shake it. Today's read is going to be about Samson and Delilah. This story isn't all peaches and cream, honey bunches of oats. Let's hear how God is working and how his word is progressing in us, and hopefully you guys still liking these Bible stories and it is resonating all in your spiritual realm, all internally, all up in here. So without further ado, y'all, let's get into the video. All right, you guys, so let's start off with some background. Y'all know I love to give a background to a story so that we have a little bit of an understanding about where we're at in the Bible, okay? So the book of Judges is basically a cycle of events of how the Israelites really don't obey God, right? Because my people of Israel, you know, they be doing too much, right? So it's just like a whole cycle of like sinning, oppression, repentance. A judge comes, saves them all, and then there's peace, and then it's right back to sinning. So they're in this vicious cycle, these Israelites, right? Samson is the judge of this story, and this story takes place in Judges chapter 13 through 16. Am I making sense? I hope I'm making sense. Okay, now the baby is born and they decide to name the baby Samson. So he was not allowed to cut his hair. He was not allowed to drink any form of wine, be drunk off any kind of alcohol they had popping off at the party. And he was not allowed to touch a dead body. Okay, remember those 3 rules because Samson really don't apply them. Okay, as Samson got older, as Samson grew up, he grew up. We get into chapter 14. And in chapter 14, it discussed how Samson went over to this town called Timnah. Samson went over to this place called Timnah. And when he was over there, he fell in love. I mean, off of first sight, immediately off of first sight, he fell in love with this Philistine woman. He goes back home to his parents. He's like, hey, I found this beautiful woman. She's a Philistine. I want to marry her. Y'all got to go grab her and let her be my wife because that's what I want. So the parents are like, you don't want to try like an Israel woman, a Jewish woman? So Samson's like, nah, I want her. So let's go back and let's go get her. They end up running into this lion on the way. So every time Samson has to use violence, the strength that he uses comes upon him from the Spirit of God. So the Spirit of God came upon him and he ended up ripping this lion to shreds. Do you hear me? Ripping this lion to shreds as if it was a stuffed animal. He left it dead on the floor, right? Then they end up going. This is just how strong Samson is. Just want to let you know, okay? He's fighting lions with his bare hands, okay? This is how strong my guy is, all right? So when he went back over to Timnah, now for the 3rd time, he took a little detour back down to that dead lion, that carcass that he killed earlier from a few days ago, right? So on the carcass are a bunch of bees, and we all know bees form honey. So there's bees surrounding this lion, right? So Samson decides, hey, I'm gonna scoop up a whole handful of honey and I'm gonna eat it because why not? Now mind you, this is breaking God's rule number 1 because Samson's not supposed to be around any dead bodies, and he's over here scooping up honey from a dead lion's carcass, okay? Okay. It's not known to anybody until later that God has set up Samson in order to fall for this Philistine woman because it was part of the plan of how he was going to take down the Philistines, okay? Okay, moving on. So because the Philistines and the Israelites did not get along, the parents of the Philistines was like, we don't don't really know about this dude named Samson because he's a Jew and we don't really rock with them like that. So they had this little party, right? So they had this little party so he can mix and mingle with the other Philistines so he could become well acquainted with the woman he's asking to be his wife, right? So as a little icebreaker, a little jokey joke, right? He's making a bet that if they get this riddle right, he is going to give them the finest garments and the finest piece of linen clothing, right? So let me read y'all the riddle just so y'all know. From the eater came something to eat. From the strong came something sweet. So we already know based on his journey over to Timnah that he's talking about the bees and the lion, right? But nobody else would know that he's talking about that because nobody else was there when he went back and did the whole bees little scoop of the honey. Nobody was there for that, right? So the Philistines end up threatening Samson's soon-to-be bride, and they're just like, listen here. If you don't tell us what Samson's riddle is, we're gonna burn you and we're gonna burn your father's house. We're burning everybody around here, right? So the Philistine woman, she gotta think. She's like, oh my God. So she goes over to Samson and she plays this little manipulative game. Oh my goodness, you don't love me. You don't trust me. Why won't you tell me your riddle? So after 7 days of her nagging and crying and just driving him crazy, he ends up telling her the riddle. And what does she do? She goes right back along and go tells the Philistine the riddle because she don't want her house to be burned down. It's just like you can't blame this woman but too much. Samson had a little bit of an anger problem. He had a little bit of a temper tantrum, okay? He really wasn't given godly character, okay? So Samson ends up furious, ends up dipping out, leaves, goes over to this town named Ashkelon. He ends up killing about 30 of them, taking their garments, and then go giving them to the people that actually won the riddle, right? Samson's done. Samson ends up leaving his wife behind, the whole Philistines that took his garments. He leaves everybody behind. He goes, right? A few harvests later, because they say he ends up coming back during the harvest season. So I'm thinking a few months passed. You know, he was out of there. He comes back to Timnah. He looks at his soon-to-be father-in-law and is like, hey, I'm ready for my bride. Where's she at? I know we had some things in the past. I know I left for a little bit, but I'm back and let's go, right? So the father-in-law is like, oh, what had happened was we thought that you were mad at her for telling the Philistines your riddle, right? So what we had did is we had let her marry a different Philistine and now she's married and she with him. So Samson's furious. He's furious. So in order to take out his anger, because like I tell you, Samson really needed a therapist at that point. He needed a little anger management, right? So after Samson heard this, he ended up gathering about 30 foxes. Yeah, foxes. Yeah. He ended up getting 30 foxes, grabbing them by their tails, twining their tails together, and putting torches in them, like actual torches. And what does he do with these foxes? He ends up allowing them to be released into the crops of the fields of the Philistine. Because now nobody's eating. Nobody's eating. You just gave my wife away to somebody else and y'all think y'all gonna get away with this? No, nobody's eating. So the Philistines get more wild up because they're like, no way, this guy just burned up all of our crops. So now they go after Samson, but Samson's like, y'all don't know, I'm really that guy. And the Spirit of God comes upon Samson and he ends up taking out 1,000 Philistines by himself. 1,000 Philistines by himself, okay? So the Israelites go up to Samson because they like, bro, listen, you know, you causing a lot of drama. So what we gonna do is we're just gonna hand you over to them, okay? And you can handle them by yourself because you're making things worse over here, okay? They end up tying up Samson and they're heading over to Judea where the Philistines were at the time. And as they're walking Samson over, they're shouting. There's Philistines think they're in triumph. They're like, yes, we finally got the madman that's been killing us with his bare hands. As soon as Samson gets close enough, right, to seeing these Philistines being all happy that he has been captured, the Spirit of God ends up coming upon him. He breaks from the ropes with his mighty strength, and he sees a fresh donkey's jawbone. Like the jawbone of a donkey is just somewhere on the floor. Okay, I don't know where they at, but there's a jawbone on the floor. So he takes the jawbone and just goes crazy, smashing and killing and smashing and havocing, and just blood, violence, death, like everywhere. There's death everywhere. After he demolished everybody, he ended up ruling over Israel for a good 20 years because the Israelites like, hey, you seem like you can you're like a one-man army. Like you seem like you can handle this by yourself. Clearly you can defend all of Israel, so take your place as rightful judge of Israel and you lead us on from the Philistines. So he ended up ruling over the Israelites for about 20 years during the Philistinian rule. This is when it gets spicy. Okay, because I know y'all been like, where's Delilah? Where's Delilah? Where's Delilah? Delilah's coming. Delilah's coming. I just had to give y'all some background on Samson because he was a mess. Okay, he was a mess. He decides to go on a little adventure, go on a little journey, right? So he goes down to Gaza. And in Gaza, he sees this prostitute, right? And he decides to have his way with the prostitute. Okay, you guys can get the picture. So when he was having this way with this prostitute, it got back to the Philistines. Hey, yo, like Samson's here. He's in the town. We don't know why he's here, but we gotta devise a plan because we gotta get him while he's here, okay? A few days later, he's still in Gaza. He runs into this Philistinian woman named Delilah. Yes, deceitful Delilah is what we like to call her. He sees Delilah, falls in love with Delilah. The Philistines notice it and they're like, oh nah, let's pull you to the side. Let me talk to you real quick. So they pull Delilah to the side, out of sight of Samson, and they're like, listen, if you get him to tell us his secret strength, we'll give you 30 shekels of silver per man. So Delilah makes a deal with the Philistines, and now she's trying to get Samson to admit his secret on why he is so strong. So Delilah starts asking, but you know, in her very promiscuous way, a very seductful way, like, honey, how would you, if you trust me, tell me how you get your strength, dear. You know, very manipulative, as the last Philistine women were. Clearly there's a little pattern here, okay? So Samson goes on with this game and he's like, you know, if you tie me up with 7 bowstrings, I will be weak and I won't be able to come out, right? She allows Samson to go to sleep. Once Samson is asleep, she ties him up with the same bowstrings he said that he would not be able to handle. And then she yells, Samson, the Philistines are here. And he breaks out of these arrows and he's looking all around like, what's going on? Who's here? Da, 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 da. So now she's like, oh, okay, you're playing with me. So tell me for real, like, how you get your strength. He's like, well, you know, if you try to tie me down with some new ropes, you know, ropes that have never been touched before. If you try to tie me down with some new ropes, it would weaken me. I probably wouldn't be able to get out of there. So what does Delilah do? As soon as Samson falls asleep, Delilah ties him up with the new rope. She says, Samson, the Philistines are here. Samson breaks out of the rope and he goes and he's up and he's like, what? So now Delilah knows, okay, now you really playing games with me. I asked you once, you're not telling me the truth. I asked you a second time, you're still not telling me the truth. Let me ask you again. Now, mind you, Samson was never allowed to cut his hair. Remember, those were one of the rules. God told Samson he was never allowed to cut his hair. So Samson had this very long, luxurious hair that was parted in like 7 long braids. So he tells Delilah, she's like, hey, listen, if you tie me up, if you tie down my braids in this loom, which I will put the picture of what a loom is right here because I didn't even know what it was. If you tie me down in a loom, if you tie my braids out in a loom, surely I wouldn't be able to get up. She ties his hair back in this loom. And she wakes him up. Samson, the Philistines are here. Samson gets up and he gets angry and he's carrying this big wooden machine on the back of his braids because I told you he's mad strong. Like, it didn't work. So after that, Delilah is like, ugh, like, you know, she's frustrated because she's like, I'm trying to get this answers, I'm trying to get this money, he's not telling me. So then she comes back harder with the manipulative card. You know, women, we just throw it out there. How could you possibly say that you love me if you don't trust me? So Samson ends up telling Delilah because she has been nagging him for days, tormenting him for days, crying for days, nagging for days. He was very persistent, and he ends up telling her, "A razor has never touched my head. I've been God's Nazarite from conception. If I were to shave, my strength would leave me. I would be as helpless as any other mortal. Sorry." So she set him up. She set up the plan. She let him fall asleep. She had the Philistines set up in the room right next door. And as soon as Samson fell asleep, she cut all of his hair. Cut it off, cut it, cut it, cut it, cut it. Soon as she cut his hair, she said, "Samson, the Philistines are here." At this point, you know, he's waking up thinking he's gonna just get out of this like he's been doing for the past couple of nights. I mean, talk about trauma. I mean, Delilah is really putting him through the ringer, because ain't no way you keep waking me up in the middle of the night about 3, 4, 6 times telling me somebody's here and they're not here. I would have fell out of love with her on the second night she woke me up. Like, girl, leave me alone. So he gets up thinking he's able to break free, and he's not. And the Philistine, he grows extremely weak. The Spirit of God has left him because he has disobeyed and cut off his hair and told the story. So his hair is cut off. The Philistines end up coming, tying him up, gouging out his eyes. I mean, he is blind. You know, they wanted real revenge for Samson for what he had did to his people. You know, for what he had did to their people. They want real revenge. So they ended up putting him to work, allowing him to do some labor, some excruciating, painful labor. But during the time that he was in prison, his hair started to grow back. So one day the Philistines decide to take him out to this ceremony to like celebrate his capture, and how, like, just to torment him, ridicule him, make fun of him. Now Samson has been chained up to these 2 pillars in this ceremony. Like, he's just chained up, looking sad, like can't see. He just hears a whole bunch of people laughing and cheering and doing all this stuff, celebrating his capture. So he touches these 2 pillars that are right beside him, that are basically the foundation of this whole arena that they're in. So he puts his 2 hands on the pillars. He prays to God like, "Lord, just give me one more strength. Give me my strength one more time. Let me do what you asked me to do, and let me die with these Philistines." So the Spirit of God comes upon him. He pushes the 2 pillars. The whole roof of this place, the whole roof of the place falls down, killing every single Philistine there. And when I say every single Philistine, I mean every single Philistine, okay? I'm talking about 3,000. Samson dies with 3,000 Philistines. Like, not that's how the story ends. And that's the story of Delilah and Samson. Like I said, the story is not giving peaches and cream, right? But I don't really think this story is supposed to give it peaches and cream. I really think, although this story, you know, captures betrayal, but God has never shut down his love for Israel. Like, although Israel has disrespected, not been obedient, God has continued to show his faithfulness through these stories. He always brings somebody to help deliver Israel from whatever oppression they are in. And I think, although this story is really violent, although this book is really violent, it's really a good capture of God's faithfulness. God is faithful, and he will always love you. He always has this agape love for you. So it's never too late to repent. It's never too late to go back and pray. No matter how many times you mess up, hopefully you stop messing up, right? You really get to know God's character and who he is. And once you just understand who he is, it makes your love for him so much more, because you realize how much he does love you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any other suggestions about what you want me to read next, make sure you comment down below. If you don't know, if you haven't heard, make sure you tell your mother, your daddy, your brother, your sister, your nephew, your great aunt, your grandpappy from 1977, okay, to subscribe to Bree Vision. Until next time, guys, peace.